Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Great. We're here for part 2. And we're in part 2 of the energy experiment. And today we are in the mind lab. And we are going to talk about how belief rewiring and your nervous system affects your hormones, how your mind is affecting your energy and your hormones. And if you missed part 1, you can go back and watch that where we talked about the body. And as a reminder, I am talking to Instagram, I'm talking to Facebook, so I'm looking at 2 screens, which is why I'm turning my head when I'm looking. If you're watching this live or catching the replay, if you're listening on the podcast, you just can listen. So your nervous system is essentially the motherboard for your body. Right? It's kind of controlling everything that's going on in your body, which includes your hormones. And your inner dialogue, your beliefs, your thoughts, your self-talk, the things you're telling yourself every day, is essentially the thermostat for your nervous system, which means that your inner dialogue, the beliefs, the thought patterns, the thought loops, the inner dialogue, all of that is 100% affecting your energy and your hormones because it's affecting your nervous system, which is why you can be eating clean, doing the workouts, taking the supplements, doing all the things, and still feel like you're exhausted, still feel the effects of hormone imbalance and hormone dysregulation because your inner dialogue is keeping your body in survival mode. Therefore, it's affecting your hormones. It's affecting your energy. So I want to talk about the science of this kind of rewiring the nervous system and the narratives that are going on behind the scenes in the mind and how that affects hormones. I want to talk about the science and I'm going to give you your experiment for the day. Because if you remember each of these 4 parts, I'm going to give you a little experiment. Hopefully you were able to experiment with the one that I gave you yesterday with the body. And hopefully you're feeling the effects of that. But let's talk about the science because I want you to understand the why behind. I always want you to understand the why behind the thing. So let's talk about the nervous system and your thought patterns. So first, neuroplasticity. You might have heard that term before. Neuro, meaning the mind, the brain, right? Plasticity, when it's plastic, it can be changed, which means that your brain literally rewires itself based on repeated thought patterns. So you can either rehearse encouraging, uplifting, motivating self-talk thought patterns, or you can rehearse limiting beliefs like I'm always behind, or I can't slow down. It doesn't feel safe to slow down. I need to be doing more. I can't handle this, right? All of these, whatever the limiting beliefs are that are replaying in your mind, strengthens that neural circuit, that pathway, that neural pathway. So rehearsing an empowering belief builds basically new circuitry in the brain. This is how it's plastic. We can rewire these things. It builds a new circuit. It's like laying down a new tracks on a railroad, right? It's laying down new pathways. You can start moving. Your body can start operating from a totally different place. So the neuroplasticity is the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is something called default mode network. The brain gets hyperactive during rumination, negative rumination, like negative thought loops. And so when we're in self-doubt or worry or anxiety or overthinking, overanalyzing, all of these things gets us in the hypervigilant, hyperactive state. And so when we're able to calm down that network, this is when we can reduce the mental anxiety, the mental fatigue, all of those things, right? It gets you out of that hypervigilance. When we're in hypervigilance, and I'm going to talk about the hormones in just a second, but when we're in hypervigilance, your cortisol level is going to respond to that. Your hormones are going to respond to that. So we want to get your body out of that hypervigilance. The other thing here, just about nervous nerve, is the last piece before I talk about the hormones, is your chronic negative thought loops keeps your body in a sympathetic state. Yesterday, I talked about the sympathetic versus parasympathetic states, right? There's that rest and digest state of the nervous system, and there's the fight or flight. We don't want to chronically be in the fight or flight. Not to say you're never going to get into that fight or flight state, but the point is to not stay in that state. When you get dysregulated, you can bring yourself down. The problem is a lot of us don't have that ability. So therefore, we're constantly in the fight or flight. We're constantly that hypervigilance I was just talking about. We're constantly in that state, and your hormones, your cortisol is going to respond accordingly to that. So when you're in constant chronic negative thought loops, negative thought patterns, negative self-talk, this is going to keep you in that sympathetic state or in that fight or flight state, which is why just thinking can trigger a physical stress response. And you know the feeling when you're in a confrontational conversation or situation and you feel your heart rate start to speed up. You feel that kind of like tense feeling in your gut. Maybe you start to feel sweaty. Maybe you start to feel tense. Maybe you start to breathe more shallow. All of these are physical responses to what's going on. And it's typically what's going on in your mind because you're thinking about either what I have to say next, what's going to happen next. It's all happening up here. How does this affect your hormones? Now, cortisol, I mentioned here a couple times already. Cortisol spikes simply with negative self-talk and negative thought loops, negative thought patterns. And studies are showing that literally what's going on in your mind can affect your cortisol levels. It doesn't have to be a physical situation that's affecting it. It could literally just be what's going on in your mind. So it's going to increase cortisol. It's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your memory. It's going to affect weight regulation. It's going to affect your estrogen, your progesterone, your blood sugar. It's just like this cascade effect. When your cortisol is out of whack, it's this cascade effect that happens because your cortisol and your blood sugar move together. So if your cortisol is spiking, your blood sugar is going to spike. Your cortisol is made in your adrenals. Your adrenals are also responsible for making some of your progesterone. So now your progesterone is going to get out of whack. There's going to be an imbalance between your estrogen and progesterone. Do you see how this is like this chain reaction of events? Literally started with what was going on in your head, your mind, your thoughts, right? That's it. Now, on the other side of that, when you can reframe these thoughts with maybe things like self-compassion, right? Radical idea, or something besides criticism. This is going to raise oxytocin. Oxytocin is that feel-good hormone, and it's that like the relationship hormone, the bonding hormone. And this can help regulate stress, helps build resilience in the body, and it can lower cortisol. Just by reframing your thoughts, giving yourself a little self-compassion and a little less criticism can shift the hormones in your body. It's crazy, right? The last thing I want to talk about is insulin, which I mentioned before, but I just want to reiterate that. Chronic stress and the beliefs that are going on, right? This raises your cortisol, which raises your blood sugar. Like I said, it's going to raise insulin. And there's a direct link between your thoughts, your beliefs, your thought patterns, your mindset, and your metabolic health. There is a direct correlation. Like this isn't us making up stuff like, oh, be careful what you think about. Like this is literally affecting your physiology, your physical body. So let's talk about how we flip this. So the first thing is your breath. The best connection between your body and your mind is your breath, period, the end. And it's funny because I just heard my yoga teacher say this the other day. And I was like, amen, girl. Like this, it's the breath. It starts with the breath. That's how we connect the mind and the body. And that's how we get the mind and the body to talk to each other. So I mentioned yesterday about the breath and using the breath before we eat, right? To signal safety to the body so that your body's like, oh, okay, I can get ready for digestion. The same thing works when we're talking about the mind. A single breath can shift everything. And I'm not saying a single breath can fix everything, but it can shift everything. And maybe you need more than a single one, but a single breath, a single slow exhale. And yesterday I talked about inhaling and making the exhale twice as long as the inhale. This signals to the body, this signals to your nervous system safety. It shifts your body into that parasympathetic state. This is opening the space for the possibility of a new thought to come in. This is how we break. It's all about the pattern interrupt. We want to interrupt the pattern of the thoughts, the beliefs, the loops replaying in your mind. And so we want to shift that. The pattern interrupt can simply be your breath. Taking a couple breaths just to slow your body down, slow your nervous system down, and make space for the possibility of a new thought coming in. The other thing, and neuroscience teaches us this, is labeling it or naming this, the emotion, right? Giving it a name, giving it a label can move the activity that's going on from the fear part of your brain to the logic part of your brain. So from the fear part, your amygdalas, the fear part of your brain, to the prefrontal cortex, which is your logic, where logic is. So just labeling it versus, so saying something like, this is stress, or I am feeling stress, versus, oh my gosh, I'm failing, or I'm like making it about you and as your identity, like identifying with the thought or the emotion, just saying what it is. This is stress. This is anger. This is fear, versus my world's falling apart. I can't handle this. I'm failing. I'm behind. I can't slow down. I can't stop. Blah, blah, right? All the loops start happening. So labeling it, saying what it is, it just that can be as simple as that, because then we can move more into logic. We can get out of the fear mind and get more into the logic mind, so we can move past it. Now, here is your experiment for today. Okay, so yesterday we talked about showing your body, taking those breaths before you eat to show your body, signal your body like, hey, we're ready to digest our food. Today, I want you to try this pattern interrupt. I want you to be really conscious about the pattern interrupt and catch the thought loop before you spiral out of control, before it ends up turning into like this big thing where you don't know where it started. Catch the thought loop. So maybe it's, I'm behind. I feel like I'm behind. I feel like I can't slow down. Maybe it doesn't feel safe to rest. It doesn't feel safe to stop. It's, I can't rest until all of these things get done. Maybe it's a loop that's happening day in, day out, where you can't stop because you feel like, well, I have to be productive to show that I'm worthy, to show that I'm a hard worker, to prove XYZ. Catch the thought loop. Catch it. And if you're familiar with Dave Meltzer talks about this concept of like being conscious of that thought coming in and saying cancel, and you stop it in its tracks. So I like that. Maybe you try cancel. Then asking yourself, if my body felt safe right now, what would I believe instead? And you don't have to believe it in the moment, like really fully believe it in your whole body in the moment, but it's just giving yourself the possibility. I could believe that instead. What could I believe instead? What could I believe instead of this? Giving yourself the possibility. That's it. This little shift can pull you out of all of that stress chemistry and signal safety to your body, because you're giving yourself, you're stopping the pattern, the loop, which we talked about. It's about that pattern interrupt, and you're giving yourself another possibility. All your brain needs to get yourself out of the fear brain and into the logic brain is a possibility of something else. That's it. Possibility of something else. So you're asking, what could I believe instead? What would I believe instead? So that is your experiment for today. This again is part 2 of the 4-part series. And I'm asking Facebook, Instagram, this is your experiment. And I challenge you to do this today, and maybe do it through the rest of the weekend, because I'm not coming back on for part 3 until Monday. So you have all weekend to practice this. Catch the thought loop in its tracks. If saying cancel in the moment feels right to you, then cancel it. You say cancel, then asking yourself, you're just giving yourself a possibility of something else. If my body felt safe right now, what would I believe instead? That's it. Okay, that is your challenge. So this is just a taste of some of the rewiring and the experimenting that we're going to do inside of the Becoming Her experiment, the energy and hormone edition. And this is a 30-day challenge, a 30-day experiment. And if you want to be fueling your energy, you want your thoughts to be fueling your energy instead of draining it, this is just one piece of it. This is one of the pieces that we're going to be diving into this 30-day experiment. And right now, you can get in for just $33 if you jump in before September 1st. And for those who jump in before September 1st, you're also going to be put into a drawing to get a free hypnosis audio if you join before September 1st. And the other thing, if you are listening to the replay, or you're watching or listening to the replay, you're watching on Instagram, Facebook, you're listening on my podcast, you are listening for the magic word, because I just said that wrong, because what you're getting, if you listen for the magic word, you're going to get the free hypnosis. So the magic word is hypno, short for hypnosis. So you're either DMing me or emailing me the word hypno. That's the magic word. You're going to get a free hypnosis audio to go along with this 30-day experiment. If you join before September 1st, what you get into a drawing to get a 30-minute session with me. So 2 little bonuses that are available right now. And I'm really excited about this hypnosis audio, because I think it's going to be really powerful and a really powerful addition to what we're doing inside of the Becoming Her experiment. So leave me your thoughts below. Questions. I love questions. I'm a manifesting generator, so I love to respond. So any questions you have, leave them below. If you're watching on Facebook or Instagram, if you're listening, you can email me. And stay tuned for part 3. I'm going to come in on Monday for part 3, where we'll talk about the energy. I'm going to tie in some human design pieces to this, which is one of my favorite things, as you know. And test this out, y'all. Test this out this weekend. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next part of the series.